video ended up being quite long, closer to 15 minutes, and so I'm going to split it into part 1, and tomorrow you'll get part 2. Thank you. Hello. Well, I told you that I would explain why I hold to the premillennial view of eschatology, that Christ returns before a physical, literal reign on earth for 1,000 years, and that he establishes that. Now, the problem with these 5 to 10 minute videos is that you can't really unpack all of the theology in all of the passages, but I'll do my best today. So the first reason that I hold to the premillennial view is it is the only view where all of the Old Testament prophecies concerning Israel specifically can be fulfilled in a literal way. So there's many prophecies made to Israel, to Abraham and his descendants specifically, about the occupation of the land, specific piece of real estate in the Middle East that we call Israel, about the prominence of Jerusalem as a worldwide capital, the promise to David that there will be a descendant of his on the throne ruling physically and politically for till the end of time, and that has not yet been fulfilled in a literal way. There's other prophecies in Isaiah, which we'll look at a couple of them today and tomorrow, that talk about a reversal of the curse here on earth, that animals will go back to being herbivores, vegetarian, and that there will be world peace, prophecies in Micah and Isaiah about world peace. All of those types of prophecies, they haven't happened yet. They haven't been fulfilled. The amillennial view says that they're all fulfilled spiritually. The premillennial view says no, they need to be fulfilled literally, because the other promises of God were all fulfilled literally. When God told Israel that they would be in captivity for 400 years, it was exactly 400 years later that Moses came and liberated them. When he told Israel that they would be punished in exile for 70 years, it was exactly 70 years later that the book of Daniel tells us that they were allowed to go back into the land under Ezra and Nehemiah. And so when the prophecy says that for 1,000 years we will reign with Christ on earth, that Satan will be bound and not be deceiving the nations, and that he will be released after the 1,000 years are over to deceive the nations again, we know that that can't be talking about heaven, because Satan won't be released and allowed to deceive people in heaven. We also know it can't be talking about heaven because in Isaiah it talks about people dying in the kingdom still, so there are still mortals in the kingdom. We'll look at some of those passages. The first main reason is that the promises to Israel need to be fulfilled. Romans 11 verse 25 says this: "Lest you be wise in your own sight," Paul speaking to the Gentiles, "I do not want you to be unaware of this mystery, brothers." A mystery is a truth that was hidden and now being revealed. "A partial hardening has come upon Israel, until the fullness of the Gentiles has come in." So that's obviously speaking about the nation of Israel, because it's being compared to Gentiles. It's not a spiritual Israel, because they have a hardening that's come upon them. It says, "And in this way all Israel will be saved. As it is written, the deliverer will come from Zion, Jerusalem. He will banish ungodliness from Jacob." This is speaking about the nation of Israel, that the whole nation of Israel that's alive at the time that Christ comes back will be saved. They will look on him whom they have pierced and mourn, the book of Zechariah tells us. Verse 27, Romans 11:27 says, "And this will be my covenant with them when I take away their sins. As regards the gospel, they are enemies for your sake," Paul says, "but as regards election, they are beloved for the sake of their forefathers. For the gifts and the calling of God are irrevocable." So this is one of the main reasons I'm a premillennialist, is that I believe that the calling and the election and the gifts promised to Israel are irrevocable. They can't be unelect as a nation. They are still beloved because of their forefathers' sake. Yes, there's a partial hardening, and the Jews have rejected their Messiah now, and those that don't place their faith in Jesus will perish. But the Bible says that at some point all of Israel will come to Christ, the Israel that's alive at the time. And that's what Romans 11:25 says. And that all those promises about the land and about them having their Messiah reign in Jerusalem on the throne of David, and all of those prophecies where Israel is prominent in the world, they need to be fulfilled at some time. And premillennialism is the only view that explains that it'll be fulfilled, those promises will be fulfilled literally here on earth. A second reason that I believe the reign is 1,000 years specifically and not an indefinite period of time, which is what the postmillennialists and definitely the amillennialists teach, most postmillennialists, is because in Revelation 20, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times in 6 verses, the phrase 1,000 years is used. Satan is bound for 1,000 years until the 1,000 years were ended. They came to life and reigned with Christ for 1,000 years. They will reign with him for 1,000 years, and when the 1,000 years are ended, Satan will be released from his prison, etc. So it seems to me pretty clear that John is giving us the time period of how long that kingdom will be. Now, the counter-argument is, numbers in apocalyptic literature, numbers in the book of Revelation are symbolic. In the book of Psalms, when we're told that the cattle on 1,000 hills are his, that's obviously not just 1,000 hills. But in hermeneutics, you learn that numbers mean what they mean unless there's a reason to take them as symbolic. And there's no reason to take this as symbolic. There's nothing in the context that makes us think that this is a symbolic number, and especially because it is repeated so many times as referring to the time period. And there's many numbers in Revelation that are not symbolic, and they're always the time period, the numbers speaking about time periods. In fact, the time periods in Revelation and the book of Daniel, referring to the same time, are given in months even, and years and weeks. So I believe that to be faithful to a literal interpretation of those passages, there must be a time where there's 1,000-year kingdom where we are reigning with Christ on earth and Satan is removed from the picture. It can't be speaking about heaven because Satan comes back at the end. It can't be speaking about now because Satan is not bound right now. Peter tells us that he is prowling around like a roaring lion looking for someone to devour, and we are constantly taught to resist him and to flee him, and we are taught that he is active, and we see him active in the New Testament after Christ's resurrection as well, with the demonic forces at work. So that's why I'm a premillennialist. Join us tomorrow for part 2. God bless.